Bank manager mocks Keanu Reeves for looking homeless. He regrets it. Seconds later, the lobby of the bank was cold marble floors, glass walls, and the kind of sterile silence that made every step echo. Behind the long counter, a row of employees in sharp suits moved like clockwork, processing deposits, smiling at wealthy clients, and avoiding eye contact with anyone who didn't fit the mold. That's when he walked in. A man with unkempt hair tucked under a faded knit beanie. His beard was scruffy, his jeans worn at the knees, his coat several winters old. He held a weathered backpack that looked like it had been across the country and back. His boots dragged slightly as he stepped in from the cold. People glanced, then looked again, then rolled their eyes. A mother pulled her child closer. A businessman whispered to his assistant, "Why is he even allowed in here?" At the center of it all, the man simply stood, quiet, patient. He didn't demand attention, but somehow, the room began to orbit him. From behind his sleek glass office, Richard Whitmore, the bank manager, noticed the figure immediately. He stepped out, straightening his $2,000 suit, adjusting his gold cufflinks. "Sir," he said loudly, arms crossed, "this isn't a shelter. You're in the wrong place." The man looked up, his expression calm. His deep-set eyes held a weariness on something else. Strength, but he said nothing. "I'm serious," Whitmore continued, louder now, catching the attention of more clients. "Unless you're here to clean the windows or ask for spare change, I need you to leave." At the front desk, a young employee named Emily shifted uncomfortably. She looked at the man again. Something about him seemed familiar, not in a flashy way, but in the quiet way a childhood memory sometimes returns. She hesitated, then stepped forward. "Maybe he just needs help, Mr. Whitmore." I could ask if Whitmore cut her off. "Help? This man doesn't need a banker. He needs a bath." The room erupted in awkward chuckles. Keanu Reeves didn't flinch. He smiled softly at Emily, then turned his gaze back to Whitmore. "I'd like to open a new account," he said, his voice quiet but steady. More laughter. A few people outright scoffed. One man muttered, "With what money?" Whitmore leaned in sarcastically. "Look, buddy, you're clearly not a client. This bank serves professionals, entrepreneurs, investors, people who belong here." He waved a hand toward the glass doors. "Not whatever this is." Emily bit her lip. She looked around. No one was speaking up for the man. The wealthy clients were smirking or looking away, uncomfortable but unwilling to intervene. Keanu adjusted the strap on his backpack and looked around. Not angrily, but almost with pity. "It's funny," he said quietly. "The people who talk loudest often know the least." Whitmore stepped closer, his voice dropping but his tone sharp. "You're seconds away from being escorted out by security." That's when a boy, maybe 10 years old, walked up holding a small coin jar. His mother tried to pull him back, but he resisted. "Mister," the boy said to Keanu, "are you okay? Do you need money?" The room froze. Keanu knelt down to the boy's level, his expression softening. "That's very kind of you," he said, placing a hand over the jar. "But today, you've given me something more valuable than money." The boy looked confused. "What's that?" Keanu smiled. "Kindness." The mother pulled the boy away. Embarrassed, Whitmore had had enough. He motioned to the security guard nearby. "Get him out of here." The guard, an older man named Malik, hesitated. There was something in Keanu's eyes that stopped him cold. Recognition, but he said nothing. Whitmore turned back to Emily and you. "If you want to keep your job, stop giving charity cases the benefit of the doubt." Emily didn't respond. She was staring at Keanu, her eyes narrowing slightly. Something was clicking into place in her mind. His voice, his posture, his eyes. As Keanu stood still, silent amid the humiliation, something dropped from his coat pocket. A black and white photo, face down. Emily noticed and rushed to pick it up before Whitmore could. She turned it over, and her breath caught it. Was a young Keanu, smiling with his late dog in front of a modest trailer. She had seen it before, years ago, in an article. But could it be? She looked back up, her heart racing. "Sir," she said, her voice trembling, What's your name? Keanu tilted his head gently and replied, Does it matter? Before she could answer, Whitmore barked, That's it. Security. But Malik still hadn't moved. He was staring at Keanu now, mouth slightly open. I know you, Malik whispered. Keanu turned toward him, gave a small nod, and said, Maybe. Maybe not. And with that, the tension in the room snapped like a wire pulled too tight. Asterisk, the tension inside the bank could be felt in the air, thick, still uncomfortable. The crowd that had quietly watched the confrontation now whispered in corners, casting sidelong glances at the mysterious man who had just faced open humiliation without a single insult in return. Keanu stood where he was, unmoved, calm. His silence wasn't weakness. It was powerful, unshakable. But the bank manager, Richard Whitmore, didn't see it that way. All he saw was someone who didn't fit, someone who needed to be removed. Malik Whitmore snapped again, louder. This time, what are you waiting for? Get this man out of here. Malik hesitated, one hand still resting on the security radio at his belt. His eyes were fixed on Keanu, with a strange expression, part doubt, part memory. Emily clutched the photograph she had picked up. She hadn't put it down. Her heart was racing, and her mind kept flashing back to the article she read years ago. She didn't want to believe it, but something inside her did. Before anyone could act, a sharply dressed client walked over and said, loudly enough for the room to hear, Honestly, what's the holdup? Why is this man still here? I don't feel safe. That was all Whitmore needed, you see, he said, gesturing with open hands. This isn't a place for loiterers. This is a place of business. Keanu met the client's eyes briefly. He didn't glare, he didn't flinch, he simply said, You're safe, don't worry, let's go. Whitmore barked, stepping toward Keanu himself. I'll walk you out if no one else will. As he reached out, Malik finally intervened. Sir, I don't think this is the right way to handle this. Whitmore turned on him. Excuse me. I just think maybe we don't know the whole story, Malik said carefully. The story is simple, Whitmore hissed. A homeless man walked into my bank pretending to open an account. Keanu lifted his hands slowly and pulled a folded paper from his coat. I'm not pretending, he said, holding it out. Whitmore didn't take it. I'm not playing games. You're not opening anything here. Emily stepped forward. Mr. Whitmore, maybe we should at least look at it. You're not in charge, Emily, he snapped. Back to your desk. One more word, and you're suspended. Emily froze. Her lips pressed together, and her eyes dropped to the floor. She quietly stepped back, but didn't sit. She just stood there, heart aching. Keanu tucked the paper back into his coat without a word. He didn't try to argue. Then, a frail voice spoke up from the corner. It was an older woman, sitting quietly in a chair near the front. That man just helped a little boy. I saw it, and he didn't ask for anything in return. Whitmore scoffed. Lady, I'm running a financial institution, not a charity. Keanu turned to the woman and gave a gentle nod of thanks. Then he turned to Whitmore again. You know, it's strange, he said softly. How people believe appearances tell the full story. Whitmore crossed his arms. I don't have time for riddles. You're done here. At that moment, a child's voice broke through. It was the same boy from earlier. He had pulled free from his mother and walked over to Keanu. Again, I saw your movie, he whispered. You were fighting those robots. Everyone froze. Whitmore laughed, but it was nervous now. That's ridiculous. Emily looked up, the photo in her hand, the voice, the posture, the eyes. It was all coming together. Keanu knelt down again. That was just a role, he told the boy. But I'm glad you liked it. The boy's eyes lit up. So it is you. His mother rushed over, flustered, pulling him back. I'm sorry, he watches too many movies. But the moment had shifted. A seed had been planted. Whitmore looked around, realizing some of the clients were now looking uncertain. He wasn't in full control anymore. He turned back to Emily. Get back to work. I won't say it again. She didn't move. Instead, she stepped forward and held up the photograph. Sir, she said, her voice steady. I think you made a mistake. Whitmore's eyes narrowed. I gave you a chance, Emily. She's right, Malik added. You didn't even ask his name. You don't need to ask a name to know when someone doesn't belong, Whitmore snapped. Keanu finally stood. To full height, eyes locked on Whitmore. And who decides who belongs? He asked. The question hung in the air. I've worked here for 7 years, Emily said quietly. And I've never felt ashamed of this place, until now. For the first time, Whitmore didn't respond immediately. He looked around at the eyes on him, no longer amused, but curious. Some even judgmental. Keanu stepped toward the exit, but paused at the door. Kindness, he said, isn't something you need a bank account to offer. He turned the handle. Slowly. Wait, Emily said suddenly. She held out the photo. Please, is this really you? Keanu looked down at it, then back at her. He didn't answer. He just smiled and walked out. The door shut behind him with a soft click. Inside, silence reigned. Malik spoke first, almost to himself. That was him. Emily nodded, tears beginning to form. Whitmore stood frozen, unsure of what had just slipped through his fingers. But outside, Keanu Reeves walked into the cold afternoon, unnoticed by the world. For now, the cold wind brushed against Keanu's face as he stepped out of the bank. He walked slowly, not out of weakness, but with a kind of quiet intention. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. He had seen all he needed to see inside those glass walls. The pride, the cruelty, the fear of the unfamiliar, but also a flicker of hope. He reached the bench across the street, sat down gently, and pulled his coat tighter. From his inner pocket, he took out a folded letter, edges softened by time, corners curled. He opened it slowly, his eyes scanning the familiar handwriting. Even though he'd read it 100 times. Dear Keanu, always remember. Even when people are cruel, you must remain kind. Not because they deserve it, but because you do. Love. Grandma. His chest tightened. Her voice echoed in his mind as clearly as if she were sitting beside him now. He closed his eyes, and in that moment, the past came rushing back. He was 8 years old, sitting on the steps of a trailer home in Ontario. Snow fell gently around him, and his hands were red from the cold. His mother had left early that morning for her third job, and the house was quiet, except for the sound of the old heater struggling to stay alive. His grandmother came out with 2 cups of cocoa, one for him, one for the stranger sitting beside him, a man with torn gloves and tired eyes. Keanu looked confused. Grandma, who is he? He's someone who needed help today, she answered gently. But we barely have anything ourselves, he whispered. She smiled. That doesn't mean we have nothing to give. The stranger took the cup with shaking hands and whispered, thank you. Keanu never forgot the way his grandma looked at that man, not with pity, but with respect, as if she saw his soul before his circumstances. Later that night, as the heater finally gave out and the cold crept in, Keanu asked her, why are you always so kind to people who don't deserve it? She kissed his forehead. Because life hasn't been kind to them either, and someone has to break the cycle. That sentence lived in his bones. Years passed. Keanu grew up quiet, thoughtful, always listening more than speaking. Life didn't make it easy. His father left without a word. His best friend died in a car accident when they were both still teenagers. Later, his sister was diagnosed with leukemia. And just when things seemed too steady, he lost the woman he loved before their daughter was ever born. But through it all, he held on to that one thing, that one lesson. Kindness is never wasted. He remembered the times he sat beside strangers in hospitals just to keep them company. The quiet donations he made to shelters and schools under fake names. The late-night conversations with people who just needed someone to hear them. Not because he was a movie star, but because he was human. In a world obsessed with appearances, Keanu had learned to see the invisible battles people fought. And so, over the years, he chose a different kind of fame, the quiet kind. The kind that didn't ask for credit. That's why today, when he walked into that bank dressed in worn clothes and tired shoes, He didn't expect applause or recognition. He didn't want it. What he wanted was to see the truth. To see if people would still show compassion to someone who looked like he didn't matter. And now he had his answer. Back on the bench, Keanu opened his eyes again. Across the street, he could still see the bank, but it looked different, now colder, smaller. A building made of glass, but without clarity. He placed the letter back into his coat, then reached for his wallet. Inside, untouched for weeks, was an old photo of his grandmother, the same one that had nearly fallen in the bank. She was smiling in her garden, holding a sunflower taller than she was. "You'd still be proud of me," he whispered. I stayed gentle. Suddenly, he heard footsteps approaching. A quiet shuffle, hesitant but purposeful. It was Emily. She stood a few feet away, holding her hands tightly together. "I wasn't sure if you'd still be here." Keanu smiled. "I don't usually run." She nodded, looking at the sidewalk. "I'm sorry for what happened back there. For not speaking up sooner." "You did more than most," he said kindly. "I recognized you. Not at first, but your eyes. They're unforgettable." He looked at her, the corners of his mouth lifting slightly. "People often forget that fame doesn't change what you feel, or how people treat you when they don't know who you are." Emily sat beside him on the bench, carefully. "Why did you come dressed like that?" Keanu took a breath. "I wanted to see who still believes in kindness without condition. No cameras, no red carpets, just people being decent." She nodded slowly, swallowing hard. "I used to believe in that, but this job, the people, they wear you down." He turned to her. "Then don't let them. Don't let their fear become your habit." Her eyes welled up. She didn't know why, but those words cracked something open. Maybe it was the stress. Maybe it was relief. Or maybe it was the reminder that someone still believed in what's right. Keanu stood, gently placing his hand on her shoulder. "Thank you for noticing. That's more than most do." She looked up at him. "Will you come back inside?" He shook his head. "No need. I already got what I came for." He turned to leave, but paused. "Tell Malik, thank you too." And then he walked away. Emily sat there, holding the photo still in her hand. The words of the letter he dropped inside the bank echoed in her heart, even though she never read them. But something had changed. In her, in the air, in the way the world looked from that bench. The next morning, Malik arrived at the bank earlier than usual. The sky was still grey, and a light drizzle dampened the city streets. But Malik's mind was focused on one thing. The man from yesterday. The man no one would believe was Keanu Reeves if they didn't see it with their own eyes. Malik had been a security guard at the bank for 5 years. A former military man, he was known for his calm demeanor and sharp instincts. But yesterday's encounter had unsettled him more than he expected. When Malik had first seen Keanu enter the bank, dressed in ragged clothes, his first thought was the same as everyone else's: a homeless man, trouble waiting to happen. But something in Keanu's eyes told a different story, something deeper, something familiar. Now, sitting in the break room, Malik stared at his cup of black coffee, thinking back to the moment when he had hesitated to remove Keanu from the bank. When his fingers had brushed the worn fabric of Keanu's coat, he had seen the faint glint of a rare watch peeking from beneath the sleeve. That small detail had made Malik pause. "What are you thinking about?" a voice asked. It was Emily, the bank teller who had shown courage the day before. Malik looked up, offering a tired smile. "The man from yesterday. I can't stop thinking about him." Emily nodded, her eyes filled with the same conflicted emotions. He was nothing like the person they painted him to be. He was kind, Malik said softly, and calm. When the little boy came up to him, I saw something change in the room. Emily's lips curled into a small smile. "You stood up for him. You could have lost your job." Malik shrugged. "Maybe, but some things are bigger than a job." They fell silent for a moment, the weight of yesterday's events hanging between them. Later that day, Malik found himself near the bank's side entrance when Keanu appeared again, this time, not as a visitor but as a man on a mission. Keanu approached with a quiet confidence, Nodding to Malik, "Good morning." Malik returned the nod. "Morning. Didn't expect to see you again so soon." Keanu's eyes twinkled. "Neither did I, but there are things to do." They walked inside together, moving past the polished floors and the buzz of customers. Keanu had arranged a meeting with the bank's board of directors, a chance to make things right, not with anger or revenge, but with hope. Inside the conference room, the atmosphere was tense. Richard Whitmore sat at the head of the table, his expression guarded but wary. Around him were stern faces, men and women used to power, money, and control. Keanu didn't waste words. "I'm not here to accuse or punish," he began, "but yesterday showed me something important. How easy it is to judge someone by how they look, without seeing who they really are." Whitmore scoffed, but Keanu continued. "There are people here who showed kindness when it mattered. Emily, Malik, people who remember what it means to be human. I want to thank them." The room was silent, the words sinking in. Then Keanu did something unexpected. He pulled a check from his coat pocket and placed it on the table. "This is for the education fund Malik's son needs." "Malik, you've been a protector for others. Now let me protect your family." Malik looked stunned. Speechless. Emily blinked back tears. Whitmore's face went pale. Keanu didn't stop there. "I also want to ask that Emily be given the chance to grow here. She deserves that much." Whitmore opened his mouth to protest, but Keanu raised a hand. Finally, Keanu said, "Let this be a reminder that appearances can deceive. And kindness, true kindness, isn't about status or wealth, it's about heart." He turned to leave, but before stepping out, he looked directly at Whitmore. "Maybe someday, you'll understand that." Outside the conference room, Malik and Emily exchanged looks that spoke volumes. Something had shifted, small but real. That evening, Malik found himself walking home under the same gray sky. He stopped at a small park and sat on a bench, staring at the check in his hand. For the first time in years, hope felt real. Meanwhile, Emily went home with a renewed sense of purpose. She placed a photo of Keanu, one she had found in the bank, on her nightstand, and whispered, "Thank you." Days later, Malik was called into Whitmore's office. The bank manager's tone was different, now less arrogant, more cautious. "Malik, I wanted to apologize for yesterday," Whitmore began awkwardly. I underestimated the situation." Malik nodded, accepting the apology, but feeling something else beneath the surface: fear of change. Whitmore leaned back. "We're reviewing our policies. This won't happen again." Malik left the office feeling wary but determined. The world was changing, whether Whitmore liked it or not. In the weeks that followed, the story of Keanu's visit spread quietly among the staff. Emily was promoted, Malik's son received the funds he needed, and the bank slowly began to embrace a new culture, one of empathy and respect. And yet, through it all, Keanu remained a mystery. No grand announcements. No red carpet returns, just a man walking through life with kindness as his guide. One evening, as Malik locked up the bank, he noticed a note taped to the security desk. It read, "To Malik and Emily, thank you for being lights in a world too often dark. Keep shining. Kr." Malik smiled, knowing that sometimes, the smallest acts of kindness could change everything. Asterisk. The morning sun filtered softly through the tall windows of the bank's lobby, casting long shadows across the polished marble floors. The usual hum of business was tinged with a curious energy. Whispers floated through the air, eyes darted toward the entrance, and phones were quietly raised to record or photograph. Word had spread faster than anyone expected. The man who had been mocked and dismissed, the man who walked in looking worn and tired, was not just any man. He was Keanu Reeves. It was Malik who had broken the silence first, quietly confirming to Emily what they both already suspected. The proof had been undeniable. The photo, the mannerisms, the unmistakable calm that carried the weight of someone who had lived many lives beyond the surface. Now, the staff and customers alike watched as Keanu stepped into the bank again, this time greeted not with suspicion or laughter, but with wide eyes and hushed gasps. Richard Whitmore, the bank manager, sat behind his desk, his face pale, his usual arrogance replaced with a creeping sense of dread. His fingers tapped nervously against the wood as he glanced toward the entrance. Keanu approached the counter, not with the humble, uncertain posture of before, but with quiet confidence. His eyes scanned the room, lingering on faces filled with surprise and some shame. Emily stepped forward, her heart pounding. "Welcome back, Mr. Reeves," she said softly, the respect in her voice unmistakable. Keanu smiled, a slow, genuine smile that seemed to light up the space. "Thank you, Emily," he replied. "Today is not about me. It's about what happened yesterday, and what it means for all of us." The room fell silent, waiting for him to speak. Keanu's voice was steady but powerful. "Yesterday, I was judged by the clothes I wore, by the way I looked. I was mocked, ignored, and treated like I didn't belong." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "But I didn't come here to hold grudges. I came to remind us all that kindness is not a privilege reserved for those who fit a certain image. It is a right everyone deserves." Eyes shifted toward Whitmore, whose jaw tightened. He swallowed hard, but said nothing. Keanu continued. "I'm sure many of you felt uncomfortable when I walked in looking as I did. But how many of you stopped to see beyond that?" Several customers nodded, some lowering their eyes. Whitmore cleared his throat. "Mr. Reeves, if you'll allow me." Keanu raised a hand gently. "No, Richard. I want to say this first. I don't want to shame anyone. I want to inspire change." He looked directly at Whitmore. "Yesterday, you made a choice to mock someone based on appearance. You wielded your authority to silence kindness and push someone away who only wanted a chance." Whitmore's face flushed red, the shame palpable. "I'm not here to punish you," Keanu said softly. "But I do want to ask, what kind of leader do you want to be? One who sees people, or one who sees only labels?" The room held its breath. Suddenly, a young woman from the crowd spoke up. "Mr. Reeves, your kindness yesterday to Malik and Emily, it changed how we see things here. It changed me." More voices joined hers, echoing the sentiment. Emily, standing beside Keanu, smiled with tears glistening in her eyes. "It's time for us to be better, to be kinder." Keanu nodded. "Exactly." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small envelope. "I'm donating to a fund to help people in need, those who don't always get a chance." He handed the envelope to Malik, who stood nearby. Still stunned by the unfolding moment, the crowd erupted in applause. Whitmore sat frozen, overwhelmed by the moment he had lost control over. Then Keanu surprised everyone again. "I don't want revenge. I want respect. And I want us all to remember that sometimes, the greatest strength lies in humility." He turned to leave, but before stepping out, he turned back and said, "Remember, kindness isn't about who you are, it's about what you choose to do." The room was silent. Then a slow, steady applause began, genuine and heartfelt. Outside, the story exploded. Phones and cameras captured the moment. Social media lit up. Headlines would follow, but this wasn't about fame. It was about a lesson. As Keanu walked away, head held high, Emily whispered, "Thank you for showing us how to be human again." And in that moment, everyone knew something had changed forever. The moment Keanu Reeves stepped out of the bank that afternoon, the world around him began to change in ways no one had anticipated. What started as a small incident inside a local bank quickly exploded across social media platforms, news outlets, and conversations everywhere. The video of the bank manager mocking Keanu thinking he was just a homeless man was shared millions of times within hours. Balak sat in his modest living room, the screen of his phone glowing bright as notifications poured in. Messages from friends, family, and even strangers flooded his inbox. "Did you see what happened at the bank?" one text read. "You're a hero," another said. Yet, despite all the attention, Malik felt overwhelmed. Emily sat at her desk at the bank, staring at her computer screen. The same video was playing on repeat. Comments poured in, some praising her courage to stand up, others criticizing the bank's initial behavior. But through it all, Emily felt something she hadn't felt in years: hope. Back at the bank, the atmosphere had shifted dramatically. Customers who once walked in with suspicion now smiled knowingly at Malik and Emily. Some even stopped to thank them for their kindness and courage. The power balance inside the bank was breaking down, replaced by something new: a collective desire for fairness and respect. Richard Whitmore, once the confident and arrogant bank manager, found himself isolated. His phone calls went unanswered, his emails ignored. The board of directors called an emergency meeting to discuss the fallout. Whitmore sat at the conference table, surrounded by stern faces, the weight of his actions pressing down on him. "We cannot afford this kind of negative publicity," one board member said sharply. "The bank's reputation is at risk." Whitmore nodded, swallowing his pride. "I realize that now." Meanwhile, Keanu remained distant from the chaos. He chose not to engage publicly beyond a few quiet interviews where he emphasized the need for kindness and understanding, rather than revenge or bitterness. His humility only amplified the public's admiration. The incident sparked a wave of conversations nationwide about judgment, appearances, and empathy. News segments discussed the incident as a case study of unconscious bias. Schools brought it up during lessons about kindness. People everywhere shared their own stories of being misjudged or misunderstood. Malik received unexpected support from the community. Local organizations reached out, offering assistance for his son's education and family needs. The generosity overwhelmed him, and he found himself crying quietly one evening, grateful beyond words. At the bank, Emily was promoted to a supervisory role. The management recognized not only her bravery, but her natural leadership and kindness. Her smile was brighter, her confidence renewed. However, not everyone was ready to embrace the change. Whitmore tried to defend his actions in private meetings, claiming he was under stress and only trying to protect the bank. But the damage was done. His arrogance and harsh judgment had cost him the respect of his colleagues and the community. One afternoon, Malik and Emily crossed paths in the break room. Malik held out an envelope. "From Mr. Reeves," he said softly. Emily's eyes widened. As she opened it, inside was a handwritten note. "Thank you for your courage and kindness. You remind us all that true strength is found in compassion. Keep shining your light." Emily looked up, tears glistening. "He really means it." Malik nodded, feeling a warmth that went beyond the words. Even the customers noticed the change. The bank no longer felt cold or unwelcoming. Malik and Emily greeted people with genuine smiles, and slowly, others followed their example. The culture was shifting. Outside the bank, news cameras filmed the once dismissive building now buzzing with warmth and openness. The story became more than just about one man. It was about the power of empathy and the ripple effects of kindness. In a local cafe, a group of people watched the viral video on a tablet. "It's amazing how one person's humility can change so much," one said. Another replied, "and how someone in a position of power can learn the hardest lessons." Back in his quiet home, Whitmore stared at his reflection in the mirror, the arrogance stripped away by public shame. For the first time, he questioned who he had become. Malik sat with his son, telling him the story of the man who had stood tall, even when treated unfairly. "That's the kind of person I want you to be," he said. Emily wrote in her journal late at night, words flowing freely. "Kindness is contagious. Courage is quiet. We all have the power to change the world one small act at a time." Keanu, somewhere far away, watched the news reports and smiled softly. He didn't seek credit. He simply hoped the message reached those who needed it most, and it did. The days after the viral video slowed to a steady hum, but the impact continued to ripple through the lives of those involved. Malik sat quietly in his small apartment, the soft hum of his son's laughter echoing from the next room. It was a sound that felt both fragile and precious, one worth protecting at all costs. Keanu's unexpected generosity had already begun to change everything. The check given to Malik was more than just money. It was a lifeline, a symbol that someone believed in him and his family. It allowed Malik to focus less on survival and more on the future. But the gift didn't stop there. One chilly afternoon, Malik received a phone call that would change his life again. "Mr. Malik. This is Jennifer from the Community Hope Center," the voice said warmly. "We've partnered with a local business to offer you an apprenticeship program. It's a chance for you to develop skills and build a stable career." Malik's heart skipped a beat. "I don't know what to say." "Just say yes," Jennifer replied with a smile. Meanwhile, at the bank, Emily was settling into her new role with quiet determination. She had proven herself as a leader, and the respect she earned wasn't just from her title, it came from the way she treated others. With empathy and honesty. One morning, Keanu appeared again, this time as a surprise visitor. He walked calmly through the bank's lobby, his presence commanding attention without demanding it. Emily approached him, a smile lighting up her face. "What brings you back?" Keanu's eyes crinkled in a gentle grin. "I wanted to see how things were going. And to remind you both that this is just the beginning." He handed Emily an envelope. Inside was a letter and an invitation, a chance for Emily to attend a leadership program designed to empower people like her. "You deserve every opportunity," Keanu said. "Use it to keep making a difference." Emily's eyes shimmered with tears. "Thank you, I won't let you down." Outside the bank, Whitmore struggled with the consequences of his actions. He had reached out to Malik and Emily, hoping to apologize and make amends. Malik listened politely, but remained cautious. Forgiveness would take time. Whitmore's public image was damaged, but more than that, he felt a deep personal reckoning. The arrogance that had once defined him was replaced by a new awareness, a recognition of the harm caused by prejudice and fear. One afternoon, Whitmore asked Malik to meet with him. They sat across from each other in a quiet cafe. "I want to apologize sincerely," Whitmore began, voice low. "I was wrong to judge and mock you. I hope one day I can earn back some trust." Malik nodded slowly. "Acknowledging that is a start," Whitmore sighed. "I want to change, but I don't know where to begin." Malik offered a small smile. "Start by listening, and by being kind." As the weeks passed, Malik's apprenticeship flourished. He found purpose and pride in his new work. The community rallied around him, inspired by the story of resilience and compassion. Emily's leadership blossomed till she became a mentor for others at the bank, encouraging a culture of respect and kindness that was contagious. Keanu's unexpected gift was more than financial. It was a beacon of hope, a reminder that sometimes one person's compassion can ignite a movement. One evening, Malik and Emily met at a local community event celebrating kindness and second chances. They shared stories, laughter, and tears. Emily raised her glass. "To new beginnings." Malik smiled. "And to the man who showed us what true strength looks like." They both glanced toward the entrance, where Keanu stood quietly, watching but not seeking attention. As the night ended, Keanu approached Malik and Emily. "Remember," he said softly, "it's not about who knows your name, it's about what you do for others." Malik nodded. "We'll keep paying it forward." Keanu smiled one last time, before disappearing into the night, leaving behind a legacy that would last far longer than fame or fortune. The late afternoon sun cast a warm golden glow over the small city park where Malik often took his son to play. The laughter of children filled the air, mingling with the gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze. It was a peaceful moment, one far removed from the chaos that had surrounded them weeks before. Malik sat on a worn wooden bench, watching his son chased after a bright red ball. His heart felt full, but heavy with the lessons learned along the way. Life had a way of humbling even the strongest souls, and his journey was a testament to that truth. Suddenly, a quiet voice broke his reverie. "Mr. Malik." He turned to see Keanu Reeves standing nearby, dressed simply but with the same gentle presence that had touched so many hearts. Malik's eyes widened in surprise and gratitude. Keanu, Malik said softly, standing to greet him. I wasn't expecting to see you here. Keanu smiled warmly. I wanted to say goodbye properly. My time in this city is coming to an end. Malik nodded, understanding the bittersweet nature of the moment. You changed so much for us. Keanu shook his head. No, Malik. You and Emily changed because you believed in kindness. I just reminded you. A small boy ran up, tugging at Keanu's coat. Are you the man who helped my daddy? Keanu crouched down, meeting the boy's wide eyes. Yes, I am. The boy smiled brightly and hugged Keanu's leg. Malik smiled, feeling tears well up in his eyes. Keanu stood and turned to Malik. Remember, kindness doesn't need a name. It just needs a heart. Malik nodded, words failing him. The simplicity of the phrase carried the weight of everything they had been through. They walked together to the edge of the park, where Keanu paused. This isn't goodbye forever, it's just until we meet again. With that, he turned and disappeared down the path, blending into the ordinary world that had once failed to see the extraordinary Dot. Malik watched him go, feeling a profound sense of peace. The man who had seemed homeless to so many was, in truth, a messenger of hope and humanity. Later that evening, back at the bank, Emily sat at her desk, reflecting on the journey. The once cold, unwelcoming place had transformed. Smiles were genuine. Respect was the norm, and people talked about kindness as a powerful force. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Malik. We're doing it. One small step at a time. Emily smiled, typing back, together. Across the city, Richard Whitmore sat alone in his office, the weight of his mistakes heavy on his shoulders. But something new was stirring within him, a desire to learn, to grow, and to make amends beyond words. The story of Keanu's visit became more than just a viral moment. It became a lesson etched into the hearts of all who witnessed it, in schools, in homes, and in workplaces. People shared the story of the man who taught them that dignity and kindness transcend appearance. And sometimes, when the world feels dark and divided, those simple truths shine the brightest. Kindness doesn't need a name. It just needs a heart. The end.